Hey, Part of the Problem listeners. You may not know this, but we record the show live every Monday and Friday at 6 p.m. If you want to watch the show live, or you want to watch the video, access to all the archived episodes, or you want access to the private Facebook group, the Part of the Problem Inner Circle, or you just want to support the show that you love, go on over to gasdigitalnetwork.com and enter promo code POTP. You get a 14-day free trial to the entire network, and then you get $1 off monthly membership. There's a bunch of great shows on the network. If you want to help out the show, you can also go leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, give us a positive review, share the podcast with your friends, all that good stuff. Either way, thanks so much for listening.
So that anyone can ensure that our business is the people's business.
I remember landing under sniper fire. There was supposed to be some kind of a greeting ceremony at the airport, but instead we just ran with our heads down to get into the vehicles.
I will close Guantanamo. I will restore habeas corpus.
You're listening to Part of the Problem on the Gas Digital Network.
How can you be the freest country in the world when you lock more of your own people in cages than any other country in the world? The lesson of 9/11 should have been to never fund another young rebel group in this part of the world again.
America started as the smallest government in history, and it's become the biggest government in world history.
At the end of the day, it's all about freedom.
Here's your host, Dave Smith.
Hello, hello. What's up, everybody? You already know what it is, problem children. It's a brand new episode of Part of the Problem. I am Dave Big Picture Smith. I'm here with Robbie the Fire Bernstein. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How's the press tour treating you?
Whoo! It's been tiring, but it's been fun. I've been doing a ton of shows. I can't even remember how many. So many goddamn interviews and radio shows and podcasts. But you know what? Number one on iTunes for 5 straight days. My debut comedy album, Libertas. You can get the album on iTunes, or you can get the special or the audio at gasdigitalnetwork.com. And that's how I'd say you do it. You get a discount over there at gasdigitalnetwork.com, and you get to support the company that produced and directed the special. Guys, I don't ask for a lot from you, okay? I don't ask for a lot. Just that you read your Murray Rothbard, you brush your teeth at least twice a day, and you buy my freaking special. Dave Smith Libertas. Go ahead and get that. I'm very, very, very happy with the whole rollout, and I really appreciate everyone who has bought it and all the kind things that have been said. I very much appreciate it, and we're all very happy here at Gas Digital with how the first few days have gone. However, personally, it's been a lot. I've been very busy, and I was moving this week. And my girlfriend got the flu this week, which is just tough. So it's been a lot going on. I've been very, very exhausted, but it's been a fun week, and it's been very rewarding.
How brutal is moving?
Oh my God, it's the worst. It's just the worst. It's just everything costs more than you want it to, and it's just a ton of work, and then your place is a mess, and you got to put it all... Like, it's so annoying to have to go through all the effort of taking your place apart, and then... You do that just so you have a mess that you have to put back together. It's frustrating.
I've had every time I move into a new place, I'm like, I'm done with stuff. I'm going to have a mattress on the floor, one table,
hobo.
one
Full
shelf.
Hobo.
You kick me out tomorrow,
Bernstein's
I'm good.
living like a 50s character. Like he's got like a stick with a handkerchief on the end with a few basic supplies.
It's more like when you see like the military guys who are in a location just to stake out another place and they're living real clean. But then over time, you just accumulate so much shit.
I believe that's the nomadic way to live. I think that's the...
Minimalist.
Yeah, exactly. You're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I get it. It's not easy, but anyway, so a lot of shit going on this week for me personally, but it has been a lot of fun. And one more thing that I should plug before we get into this is that I will be out in California. We're doing the Legion of Skanks in Los Angeles at the Comedy Store, and that's going to be on the 28th, September 28th. So I know that's a last minute thing. It's only a couple of weeks away, but that's going to be a real fun show. We're doing a stand-up show with me, Big J. Okerson and Louis J. Gomez, plus some other great special guests, and then we're going to do a podcast, and we'll figure out who's going to be out there. But there's so many great comics in LA. I guarantee you we're going to have some fucking awesome guests out there. And yeah, so I'll be out in LA for a few days if anyone wants to come see me out there. All right, enough of that. Enough of the business. Let's get into it. Rob, I don't know what to say. I've just been doing interviews for the last 5 days. Has the world exploded yet? What's happened? I've got a few basic headlines. Here's my takeaway.
All right.
Trump's in trouble. He's offending the mainstream media. No, so Trump's in trouble, and I just say that because this Mueller thing, the special prosecutor I saw, I've literally had probably consumed less news in this last week than I have since you guys have known me. But I know that there was something about Mueller going after his family more, which I right away just go, that doesn't sound good. I know North Korea launched another nuke or another test over Japan, another missile over Japan, right? Just to try to flex a little bit. And from what I gather, Rand Paul's been kicking ass.
Dude, Rand Paul is kicking so much ass. If we had this Rand Paul in the election circuit, he'd be a winner.
God damn it. I think you just basically summed up everything I was going to say about it in your first sentence.
My bad.
No, that's great. Listen, if you can concise this thing down to an hour, we'd be out of here by lunch. But no, that's absolutely right. Okay, so that seems to be the thing that interested you the most. And when I see passion pouring out of my Robbie Bernstein, I water that plant. Okay, so what I did think it was interesting. You showed me a little bit of the video before we started the podcast. I had read a couple of the excerpts from the clip, but it seemed like I saw that Rand Paul proposed this a few days ago. He proposed an amendment to a bill that was passing that would basically. I guess it would, in a sense, repeal, for lack of better term, I don't think that's the technical term, but it would repeal the authorizations from 2002 and 2003 to be in Afghanistan, or to go after the people who did 9/11. It's these ridiculous authorizations that they're using to justify the entire war on terror. And Rand Paul gave a speech basically saying that this is absolutely, crazy. And, he did the thing that, he invokes, he does this thing that Rand Paul does where, like you said, Rob, and this is why you have that feeling like, oh, I wish, where was this guy? Because Rand Paul it's not like a Gary Johnson. It's a whole different type of frustration with a guy like Rand Paul. Because Rand Paul will just every now and then break into Madison said the powers of war. And you're like, so man. So then where are you? How does that not show up 100% of the time? But anyway, he was basically making this case that this is obviously, Congress not fulfilling their duty, that it's our job to debate war, it's Congress's job to declare war, and that he repeated over and over that no one who's intellectually honest could argue that these authorizations actually apply to the wars that we're fighting today. Is that a good summarization?
Absolutely. But what he did that was so clever to me is he didn't just come out and go, hey, I'm against this war, I'm against that war. He said, we need to have a dialogue about this. It was such a clever play to just go, hey, this is the Constitution. The Constitution says that it's our power. This is the people who are supposed to discuss this.
And Ron Paul used to kind of say the same thing too. And he would go, Ron Paul would talk about how against the wars he was, but then he would kind of talk about how terrible the wars are and how many people are dying and how much it's costing. And then he would say, and look, even if I'm wrong, this is all I'm saying. Let's have a vote on it, an up or down vote to declare war. He goes, okay, you want war? Let's put your name on the line and let's vote for who wants it. And of course, obviously, it's pretty clear that he was going to vote against that war. But it's still there's something. There's a strong argument.
Also, just to expose, I guess, how war hungry the rest of the Senate is, or the rest of Congress is, he didn't, I guess, rally enough. It's shocking to me that the Democrats don't want to wrestle away power from Trump.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I had this video that I did a couple appearances ago on Kennedy when I was talking about DACA, got a lot of views, and it was the one where I was saying a thing. I said something about, if you care about the Constitution, how could you be for DACA? Because this is clearly something that was, what I mean? Was the president basically changing the law through an executive, fiat? And someone tweeted back at me, another libertarian, and they're like, oh, since when does Dave, care about the Constitution? It's just a piece of paper or something like that, I don't mean to make fun of the libertarian position because, I agree with you. It is just a piece of paper, obviously, and none of us ever agreed to it. It's meaningless. But it's a useful tool to show people that this whole thing is bullshit, It's oh, this is what you claim to be. Say whatever you will about this entire Congress. They all sit there and swear to uphold a Constitution that would be from all of our perspective, a way, way, way better government if they followed it than if they don't. They all swear to uphold this thing, and then they all undermine it constantly. So, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's a pretty powerful tool for Rand Paul to be there and be calling these guys out.
Well, the Constitution thing to me goes a little bit bigger than that, because the point is they're claiming, hey, we're not an unrestrained power source. We're here to do good, and the way that we've constructed this to make it that we're doing good is we're constrained by this document. And if we can point out, well, you're not constraining yourselves to that document that's supposed to be the fail-safe, and you guys are completely disregarding it, well, then we can say, hey, this entire system's corrupt. We got to reorganize. You guys have to give your power back because you're not even, going with your own safeguards.
Well, it seems to me that the constitutional argument isn't even what they use really anymore. They use a democratic argument, I think, most politicians. From what I see, it seems like their argument isn't like I'm not saying it'll never come up, and some conservatives use it to, kind of like rally up their base. But most of the time, conservatives will be arguing, or politicians, I should say, if they're arguing something, they don't argue the constitutionality of it. You know what I mean? They won't be like, well, I'm for Obamacare because right here in the Constitution it says that we can have Obamacare. They don't even try to do that. What they'll do is just make like a democratic kind of argument for it, where they'll just be like, people want, the will of the people voted for Obama because they wanted Obamacare. It was just kind of like, I have to serve my constituents. But it is interesting for some people to point out that, like, hey, this is supposed to be restrained by this book. Because somehow people wrote it down on a book a few hundred years ago, and that's supposed to stop these sociopaths from taking more power.
And then the other thing Rand said that I thought was really compelling, I've never read George Orwell's 1949, but he said that, I guess that book starts off...
You should really read it, because it's 1984.
1984, thank you. 1949 was a good year too, huh?
You've only read the first two numbers in the title. So.
I got the 19 right. That was the important part, I thought. So I guess that book starts off with the character saying, we've always been at war. And he was like, the people that are 18 now are living that reality where this country has always been at war. There's no end in sight for this war. And he goes, and then you look at what we were trying to move away from when we created the Constitution, and the framework here is we want it to be different than Europe, which was always at war. And we realized if there's just one guy who gets to make this decision, we're going to end up at war a lot. This needs to be in the hands of a different branch that has more people coming together to make that decision so that we can avoid war. The goal is to avoid war. How can we avoid it? Yeah. And he's saying under the current system, we're in this framework now where we've been at war for the last 18 years. It doesn't look like these wars are going to end. So now we're in this new system where it's like we're always at war. And who wants that? Let's have a conversation about it.
Right. And that seems to be a dangerously ignorant position to take, according to the rest of the Congress. But right, so that's what Rand Paul is saying, and I agree with you. It's a very powerful statement. It really is unbelievable, the situation we find ourselves in. And Rand Paul is amazing at these things. I mean, when he gives some of these speeches, I don't know what to say. I mean, he's like, you sit there and you see, fucking what we all thought he would be. You see Ron Paul's kid. Just this guy who's just a brilliant doctor who's sitting there speaking up for something he believes in morally, like having courage to speak up about it and speaking in a way that is rooted in logic, in an understanding of history. You know what I mean? Like in an understanding of what is actually going on and having a grasp on the situation and what we actually are losing in this country. It's unbelievable. But I guess the reason why I said what you said at the beginning is kind of sums my whole thing up. Is it's just kind of hard to. It's like he pops back up, And he's been great this week. This wasn't the only thing. He's been great about on the debt limit, on this war issue. It's almost like he's back. It's almost like it's Ron Paul again in a way to me. Like just this last week, like he's been right on all these issues. He's been like a lone voice who's out there supporting it. But it's like Ron Paul like 20 years ago, where it's like no one really seems to care. He's not really speaking to any large movement. It's just like there's one guy up there who's telling the truth. And that's nice. I mean, this is what, why all of us admired Ron Paul so much. But it's just weird, man. I mean, it's so tragic to me I thought Scott Horton, his first appearance on this show, summed it up the best. But it's like it's the worst thing that ever happened. We had this movement that was handed off to this guy, and I just don't understand why. Like it's like sometimes I get it's a tough thing when someone who you feel like gets it doesn't do what you would think would be the obvious thing to do if you got it, and it's like you want to. Maybe I'm the crazy one for actually buying into the worldview. You know what I mean? But it's like, so I feel like with people like Bernie Sanders, right? Like Bernie Sanders would talk about like income inequality and then the minimum wage and, then like, I don't know, like free college and, then like, Goldman Sachs or something. I don't know. And then he would mention like maybe like fifth or sixth or whatever that climate change was the number one threat to humanity, and that Bernie Sanders would just say insane things. Like I remember one time it was the one who goes, climate change is going to make the world uninhabitable for our children and grandchildren.
It's gonna be so hot.
It's gonna be so hot, and I don't know how to work the AC unit. So what are you gonna do?
Do you guys want to walk around schwitzing all the time?
Now let me be clear. If I am president, you will not be schwitzing. But so that's it's like, okay, so global warming is going to destroy all of humanity so our children. Your children are going to be killed by something. Just saying, if your children are going to be killed by something, maybe this should be number 1 and not number 5. Michael Malice made that point, but it is a very good point. He goes, you can tell that people on the left don't believe their own bullshit about global warming, but they'd be talking about global warming every single day, and it's all they'd want to talk about. And it's true. They pull it out when convenient and go, oh, by the way, the world is going to end in 50 years. Like, okay, well, why doesn't that lead every show? Because it's not really going to end. I'm just saying, if you're going to sit there and go, oh, global warming is making the world uninhabitable for our children, you're telling me someone's threatening to kill your child? Like, if someone's like breaking into your house to try to kill your child, do you deal with like 7 other issues in the meantime? I feel like you'd probably just address that issue. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, I read something that was so similar to the point that you're making just now, and I thought it was...
Bro, if I'm plagiarizing, you can't just call me out live on air. This give and take is not going to work.
There was a Wall Street Journal article that was talking about that statistic that 1 in 4 women are sexually assaulted on campus. And it's like, if that was true... What parent is bringing their daughter to college?
Why are women voluntarily going to college and paying for the privilege?
Yeah, like
to go be raped.
If there was really a place where 25% of people were getting raped, would anyone go there? No, of course not.
There's a rape zone and a non-rape zone,
right.
And the rape zone costs $30,000 a semester.
And people are paying to go to the rape zone.
Come on.
So clearly that isn't reality. So on the same basis, what you're saying now with the same line of reasoning with the global warming, if you guys really believe this...
Well, I'll tell you, it's also a very Misesian way of looking at the world, because Mises always realized that you can judge things by human action. You can infer things through human action. And that like it's kind of like, I think this is a kind of Misesian, and this is the way I look at like Mises type Misesian type of thinking for just like an average person, is it's just like, like, I don't know, if I go like, if me and you walk down the street and we both look at a hat through a storefront window and I go, man, I want that hat. And then you go like, man, I want that hat too. And I'm like, I really want that hat. And you go, dude, I'm going in and buying that hat.
I'm bald. I need the hat more, Dave Smith.
Well, listen, I'm not saying what the reasons are. I'm saying the fact that you went in and bought it implies a little bit something about you wanting it more. You know what I mean? The fact that I wasn't willing to buy it and you were. And there's something about like people's actions imply something. And if you're gonna say, so to me, it's like, when I talk about like war being mass murder and the number one issue of our time and this like moral atrocity, it's like, then you see, like, I treat it that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, always. It's not like you turn that off for a little while. And I just don't get why, if Rand Paul understands it, because that, the global warming thing is bullshit, but this is real. This is really happening. So it's like, why are we... Like, why would you ever not be leading with this issue in the campaign? And look, I don't know what the fuck goes on at the highest levels of this crazy criminal organization. I don't know what happened to Rand Paul, but it's hard to not sit here and just go like, okay, so what if he had just done it the whole time? Because I don't know, man. Like, you can sit here and say like, oh, it was all over and the libertarian moment was gonna fade, and they'd blame all these different things like the rise of ISIS or the rise of Donald Trump or the rise of this. But I gotta say, man, I really think if Rand Paul had just stayed the course and I had just seen this Rand Paul regularly, I think he would have been there. Like, why is it that Ron Paul was able to stay in the race throughout the entire race, and Rand Paul had to drop out after New Hampshire? Because he wasn't getting that money, he wasn't getting that support, he wasn't getting this gas, and now he doesn't have it. He could have at least, even if he hadn't like won the presidency, which was always a long shot. I really do think he could have kept the liberty movement alive, and he could have used it as an opportunity to wake up a lot more people, and he could have. He would have been right now when he's doing this thing. He would have had a much bigger movement behind him. So it's very disappointing, man, because I'm saying it's like the analogy of like how the left thing with climate change. Like, man, why are you, if you know all this stuff, and you obviously do, he snaps into this stuff and he knows what he's talking about. So it's like, if you understand all this stuff, if you really understand the issue of war and peace and where we are right now, and Rob, as you're saying, like, you're laying out like this understanding of what great thinkers have written about, obviously the George Orwell thing is a fiction, but understanding the history of Madison, the comment of thinkers like Orwell, and the idea that war and peace is understanding where that question, the level of importance that it has, and then understanding that you're in a situation where war has basically fallen into a dictatorial like power, where there's no more body of the people that are even debating over this whole illusion is gone, and it's just this oligarchical control. I mean, there's no other way to say it, right? Like, it's a group of people who just have war powers. They're not elected, and they're not, I guess the president is elected, but the men around him certainly aren't. So it's either like one elected dictator or, like an oligarchy. And so he understands that. So then, much like the point I was making with the climate change guys, why are you in the presidential debates leading off with Donald Trump signing a pledge for the Republicans? Why are you talking about arming the Kurds? Like, why are you talking about all these other things that are just not, I don't know. Why are we spending all these time? Why did we not just embrace the Ron Paul blueprint? It was right there in front of you. Anyway, I hate to be knocking Rand Paul when I'm kind of trying to give him credit for a good week, but he just kind of,
Yeah. I agree 100%. He lacked the passion in the election, but maybe he'll have more moments like this. Now, in regards to this moment, if I was reporting on this, my headline would have been, Senator proposes something reasonable, everyone else disapproves.
Yes.
And what's really crazy to me, you've pointed this out more than once, is that kind of the misguidedness of what liberals are getting upset about. But I can't believe more people aren't coming out and going, wait, someone was trying to reduce war and they wouldn't even have a conversation about it. Like, how is this not bigger headlines of, like, this seems like a real humanitarian cause, to at least have a conversation about who are we at war with and why is there one guy just making these decisions with ongoing war, and the Senate went, whoa, that's dangerous, Stephen. We can't do our jobs and have that conversation.
Yeah, you're right.
There should be fucking outrage over that.
You're look, I couldn't agree with you more. And it's really, you said it very well. And on top of that, like, it shows, I guess what, another takeaway from it that I have is that, it's just one more reflection of the media too. I mean, how could you not, like, if you were, right, so you're saying your take as a journalist would be, okay, guy makes reasonable point, other people don't. Like, even if that's not your take, how could you, as a journalist, see that, right? Like, let's just say you're a journalist, Rob, and you're not a bought and paid for piece of shit. Like, you're actually, you know what I mean? Like, just assuming you're an honest intellectual actor. How could you look at that and not go, that's my story? Like, that's the story.
Yeah, I want to know who voted against
like,
this and why.
Guys, like, this is what I'm bringing to the American people. Oh my God. If you're a journalist, it's like, we're profoundly changing the way we go to war. This is what I don't understand. And by the way, I've said this on SE Cup's show, but I go, how are you, when you guys are going to call everybody fake news, like, it's like Obama signed into the NDAA the right to detain American citizens without charges. How is that not, how are you a journalist? And that's not huge to you. That's not like, we got to break that story right now. Like, I'm going to spend, I've found my issue. I've found my issue that I'm going to write about for the rest of my career. I mean, like, how are there not at least a few of you? And that's the thing that I've come to learn about the mainstream media. It's like you can prove everything you need to about them just from their reactions to other things and going like, well, if they weren't full of shit, they'd have to handle it this way. And they won't.
Absolutely. And then I want to comment on Mr. War himself, McCain, who somehow, climbs out of his deathbed to show up to Congress and give a speech and make sure that even
he's
if
not the only one who's going to die,
and that even if he's not around for it, he needs to make sure that the country is going to remain at war. That's like his Obamacare legacy, is just making sure that the American people remain at war. He needs for that to happen.
And it's like you go to these guys like McCain and Lindsey Graham and these and like. You're like, what war do you not want to fight?
They're like, what the fuck, dude?
What is wrong? like you're telling me it just happens to be that you're always on the side of war? Like, I'm sorry, that's not the same thing as me always being on the side of peace. Always being on the side of peace, like that makes more sense. Everybody, the neutral position is supposed to be to want peace. You know what I mean? So if you don't want, you're like if you're an advocate for peace, what you're basically saying is let's not start murdering people. That's the radical. If you're making the case, let's start murdering people, I think it's fair to say to any civilized person, the burden's on you, right? Like, it's not on me to prove that we shouldn't murder people. It's on you to show that we need to, right? So let's say there's this one situation where you're there and you're like, look, we all agree we don't ever want to murder people, but this is one of those situations we got to go murder a lot of people. I know, it sucks. And I'm over here making the radical argument, don't murder people, and you're like, let's go murder a bunch of people for strategic reason X, Y, and Z. That then turns out to never come true. Of course, you get exactly the opposite. But whatever. You're for murder, I'm against murder. And that's in this one situation. And then another situation comes up and you're for murder. And another situation comes up and you're for murder. And another situation, and another situation. Like by the 7th, 8th, 9th time, it's like, are you just always for murdering a bunch of people? This is insane.
Right. And then in this case, you got Rand Paul going, hey, why don't we have our job, there's a guideline here, and the guideline says that we're supposed to have a conversation about whether or not we're going to go over there and murder people. And then McCain shows up after him and goes,
yeah, who disturbs my Warhawk slumber?
Yeah, the Frankenstein version of Dave Attell is the most spot-on McCain that you could possibly do. But
That's all I got. It's like 3 voices.
But he does just show up, war. I want war. No, but that's what he goes. He goes, no, this war thing is too important for us to possibly vote on, so we can have your stupid vote, Rand, but first we have to actually put in place that we're going to do all these wars first.
Yeah,
it's insanity.
And now everyone talks about everything in terms of foreign policy with it, or just in terms of everything. Like everything that they cover in the news, they cover with a complete blind spot to what we do with our foreign policy. Like that's supposed to not come up. Like they'll like talk about Iran pursuing a weapon and not bring up that we just went and fucked up countries next to them that didn't have the weapon. You know what I mean? Like they'll be like, Iran's still pursuing a weapon, and you're like, well, Gaddafi disarmed and you went in and took him out. Saddam didn't have any weapons, you took him out. So I don't know, like, why is North Korea, they'll talk about it, why is this North Korean dictator, like, why is he, launching all of these missiles? It's like, oh, okay, let me explain it to you. If he didn't, he'd be dead. That's why he's doing it. What do you think would happen if North Korea disarmed tomorrow? You think we wouldn't go overthrow that guy? The only reason why this is all an issue is because they have nukes. It's the only way to protect yourself against the American military-industrial complex is to have nukes. Nah, he's a piece of shit. And he's holding all these people hostage. But the nukes, it's like a guy holding a room full of people hostage, and you're like, why doesn't he just give up the gun? It's like, because then he's done.
I still think we can win that fat kid over with cheese doodles. No one's tried it yet.
Has anyone tried laying a thin trail
of cheese doodles?
I'd say 2.5 feet in between every doodle.
It would work.
But they don't. But the thing is, Rob, there's no interest in that. There's no money in cheese doodles.
Because they're not going to Congress and voting on it. If I could get this cheese doodle initiative onto the floor and they were actually willing to have a dialogue about it, it might go somewhere. But no, they're not looking for new ideas.
But that shit to me with voting on the War Powers Act. It's all interesting to me, but it's only interesting to the extent that it just exposes the whole system. Because it's not like, oh, if they came and voted on it, they got enough votes, they'd get their war hawk votes, and it doesn't even matter. It's just the point to like point out that it's, you know, that they're not even, you know, it's like the government is, and this is, you know, I don't care like how many of you like people get away from this. I'm still over here in the freedom world.
The most consistent motherfucker you know.
That's what they call me, and I forget who started calling me that, but it was other people, not me. And it I'm over here where it's like, no, look, man, the great story is still what the state is and the nature of the state, and like we live under this. It's like we've said for years. It's the mafia posing as a human rights organization. That's what's fascinating about the state. It's like it's the mafia, but the mafia just figured out instead to just kind of be like, nah, we're here for you, and you need us, and we get, you know, and that's interesting. Anytime you can kind of point out what it is really, I think we're doing some good. And I guess it's good. It's good to have one guy, even if he's a lone voice or one of a few voices out there in Congress, at least pointing that out.
Also,
some light.
I mean, this is a little contrary to what you're saying, but I do think the accountability does kind of change the scope. So, for example, a lot of senators who supported the Iraq War became very unpopular in later years. And so, if you have like take Joe Lieberman or take even Hillary Clinton, never really lived that down. Like, if all these people were forced to, like, if people were forced to vote, hey, yeah, I want to go bomb Yemen, and then in the next campaign, the other guy gets to go, hey, he wanted to bomb these little kids, you know, there is accountability there.
Yeah, look, I'm not completely disagreeing with you. I would prefer that to this system. It would be better. There'd be more accountability. Yeah, it's a lot easier to vote for these authorizations back before the blood starts, you know, pouring. But I'm just saying I don't think this system of government would end up, you know, if the like I don't think it's going to reel itself back into a constitutional, you know, republic and then start kind of, you know, like.
Well, let me ask you, as a theoretical, let's say they got rid of that War Act, because I was curious about this myself. Would Congress then vote to continue doing like drone bombings? Like, because almost, if you got rid of, I guess, what happened after 9/11, we declared war. And so the way Rand is kind of phrasing, he's saying all these countries that we're bombing we're essentially at war with, and no one ever voted to go bomb those countries. So that would make a pretty interesting debate on the floor if people were talking about drone bombings, like, because then you'd have to start having a discussion. Well, who are we bombing and why? Which is not something you ever really.
Kind of, look, I get the point that you're making. That would be a fascinating conversation. And yes, all of it is the justification they claim are these authorizations. It's basically that they claim that they were given free rein to go after the, you know, the group that attacked us on 9/11 and the groups that work with them, and then they say everyone's a group that works with them, and they kind of like use this legal justification for all of the stuff, and that's how they justify the drone program as well. But what you're saying is that if they were to vote on this in Congress, then we would get down to this deep philosophical debate where we really had to talk about all of the important issues, and they would be like, well, what about the drone campaign? And what about this jurisdiction and this and that? And it's like, well, okay, I mean, you know, see the debate on healthcare to see if that's how we actually have a conversation about issues on the congressional floor when we're voting for something. They don't. It would come down to just demagoguery and people sticking up for their own lobbyists. And I get what you're saying. It would be better. Right. It would be preferable to make them come to the congressional floor. But at the end of the day, it's just a good.
You think so? You would theorize that even if Rand Paul won on this one and they got rid of it,
I'd be thrilled if Rand Paul won on this one. It's a very good thing.
But pretty shortly thereafter, they'd all come to the floor and kind of vote to continue doing what we're doing.
More or less, what you would have is them come back and then, you know, vote. Like, the point is he's not going to get it through to begin with, right? You'd have to take over Congress in order to get this thing through.
Right.
And then it's like, even if it was to go through, you don't have Congress, right? So, it's just, yes, if you took over Congress with a whole bunch of Rand Pauls, then you could put some pressure on the executive branch, and then we'd find out. But I don't even fucking know. I mean, after Trump, what it really lets you know, like, who the fuck's running this thing? I don't know. I don't really think it's the president. I don't think any of these branches really have the exact power that that they claim they have. I'd be interested if Congress, you know, actually said, no, we're not doing that anymore. You know, this happens sometimes, right? Like even in the opposite angle, which I think is probably a very, very, very good thing. But, you know, when someone like Colorado is just like, no, we're not doing the war on drugs thing anymore. We're legalizing pot. Like, no, we're not doing pot as a Schedule A1 felony. You know, you go to jail for the rest of your life for it. Instead, you just have it. That's a pretty big change. It's a bitty prig change.
Yeah, I kind of almost think what happens is because they never talk to us about the petrodollar or what they're doing to kind of implement dollar demand. But I wouldn't be surprised if someone has a real sit down with the president and go, okay, here's what's really keeping this country afloat. We got a scam going here where everyone's working in dollars. And at the same time, the Federal Reserve is trying to inflate away our debt. Now, this is quite a racket that we have going on. And if anyone finds out about this racket, it's a Ponzi scheme, and this entire country is going to go broke, and it's going to be a disaster. So this is what we have to do to keep the system running.
Look, it's a very interesting
and then all of a sudden,
they put you in a position where they go, look, are you going to be the one who wants to ruin the United States of America? Look, I don't know. I think they get people around the president. They control the information that he's getting. But it's just a fascinating. It's a fascinating, interesting conversation. I am open to some conspiracies about this stuff. I mean, look, the truth is that just knowing what we know about the deep state and what the CIA and FBI and organizations like that and the NSA have done over the years, I mean, it's really not so crazy that they would fight to continue this going and fight to make sure they get what they want. But at the same time, you see in the Trump administration how much they can go after you through traditional means. I mean, you see it in Trump where it's like, okay, I don't want to fight this war in Syria. We're not fighting this war in Syria. And I'm bringing in my guy Bannon, who doesn't want to fight this war in Syria. And then, like, all of a sudden, every single major media outlet across America just decides Bannon is a Nazi, the most evil person you could imagine. This guy, he's the one. And it's like a lockstep. Every major news outlet, they're all in it together. It's all the Sunday shows are talking about. It's all the Sunday newspapers are writing about. It's amazing. And then all of a sudden you see how it has this effect on people. I'll literally look around at my left-wing friends and they're like, well, that Bannon is just racist. What are you talking about? By the way, there wasn't even an incident. There wasn't even a thing where Bannon came out and go, oh, he said this or he said that. It was just, he's there.
Yeah, I knew that was nonsense when they started with him being anti-Semitic, and then I looked into Breitbart, and you're like, this is the most pro-Israel thing that ever existed.
Yeah,
Where are you guys coming up with this anti-Semitism? But what you just said, which is so when you said like they get to control who they kind of surround the president with, and there's something funny, like if you got all these nervous people around you going like, they're going to come here, they're going to attack us, they're going to come here, they're going to attack us, and then finally you're just like, well, then fucking bomb them already.
And they're like, we got you on record saying bomb. It's been 14 hours. But like, he said bomb. You heard bomb him. Bomb him. Go ahead, bomb him.
Yeah, you can really fuck with the guy.
Yeah, man. It's like, it just becomes an interesting, look, it's a lot of that stuff, like who knows, and different people have claimed different things about what actually goes on once you get in there. It's an interesting thing to wonder about. I'll say that. All right. Today's show is brought to you by BetDSI.com. I love this sponsor. Nothing more fun than throwing a few bucks down on a game, and football season is upon us. The Jets are on their way to the Super Bowl, 0-1, just like we like to start, humble, and now we come on strong, and we rattle off 15 straight W's. And if that happens, your host is a rich man because of BetDSI.com. It's a lot of fun. They've been around for over 20 years, and they're A+ rated on sportsbook review sites, so you know they're legit. It's a real easy site to use. Even I can figure it out, and they've got a great deal, okay? If you go to BetDSI.com now and you use the promo code PROBLEM25, you get a $25 free wager. So just for registering, they give you $25 to go crazy. You throw that on the Jets to win 15 straight games. I don't have the odds in front of me, but that pays big. I can tell you right now that pays big. And on top of the free $25, if you decide to deposit money, you get a 200% bonus match on your money. So it's pretty cool. It's over at BetDSI.com. That's Problem25. Get a free $25 wager on the house, plus 200% extra bonus when you make a deposit. BetDSI.com. What else is going on? We talked about the North Korea situation.
Hillary Clinton's back out in the news.
Oh, yeah. How did I not open with that? Well, it is,
Just won't go away.
Oh, Hillary Clinton, the herpes of politics. Every time you think it's cleared up, she comes right back up for a little more. God damn it, Hillary, I had a big date tonight. Yeah, what can I say? I mean, I spent, and for people who follow me, for the problem children out there, I know, some of you just more casually listen to this show, and some of you dig in, and you're all in, heart and soul, anarcho-capitalists. I already bought 2 copies of Libertas. Those motherfuckers, okay? You've been with me for a while now, and there's nobody I've been harder on than Hillary Clinton. She takes the cake. I think I've been harder on her than I was on Obama. Just because there was something about Hillary that was like, she was always around in a major force, and she was like the most hawkish member in the Obama administration, and she was obviously setting up her whole run the whole time. And also because I thought she was going to be president, and she was going to be the figurehead of this awful institution known as the state. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention. It didn't work out that way. And now, we've talked about before on the show, and a lot of other libertarians have made this point, but Hillary Clinton, it really does. It shows you the nature of this institution of the state, because right away Hillary Clinton goes from, and I don't mean this to be hyperbolic. I really mean this. But with one election lost, right? Hillary Clinton goes from the biggest threat to civilization to a crazy old lady in the woods. It's unbelievable. It's like as soon as she doesn't win this job in the state, she's right back to like just some crazy old sociopath who's completely out of touch, probably would slice your throat, but no longer has a knife. That's it. And Hillary Clinton obviously is, I think, just an evil person. She's always been an evil person. For anyone who pays attention, there's just an overwhelming amount of evidence to support that. And she's a complete narcissist, is completely out of touch with anything, unable to see anything throughout her that's outside of her own narcissistic kind of world, can't blame herself for anything. And she's devastated. She's like off her rocker over this loss. It's all that shit. All of that just seems obvious to me. I know it all sounds like you're just speculating about someone else's like...
she just wanted it so bad.
It's so obvious.
It's all she ever wanted, and she just couldn't have it, and she can't compute. How can I not have something that I want?
She's like...
I'm Hillary Clinton, damn it.
She's going out there talking to a world, to a country, portraying herself as the victim because she's like a multi-millionaire who didn't get the job she wanted.
No, it's not the victim. She's trying to inform the people so that they wouldn't make such a horrible... They made the worst mistake ever, so let's evaluate how this mistake was made.
She is absolutely playing the victim, dude. She's coming out and saying the reason she lost is because other people did these things to her.
Oh, yeah, which is so ridiculous.
That she would be president if it wasn't for Comey and Bernie Sanders and all these other things.
Also, Bernie Sanders went so fucking light on her that it was embarrassing to Bernie Sanders. I remember watching that shit, like he was just letting things slide. Like there was at one of the debates, and he was like, "Hey, let's move on from the email thing." And it's like, that's your chance to win this primary. This is like, if Bernie Sanders, forget, like, I mean, the whole party thing is ridiculous, but if you actually stand for something and you have someone like Hillary Clinton, like if you really believe in your socialist values or whatever it is that Bernie Sanders agrees in that is different than Hillary Clinton, fuck yeah, if you're at a debate, you should challenge her.
Yeah, I said this during the campaign. I made this point a few times. We go, Bernie Sanders, of course he's a complete fraud, but even besides that, Bernie Sanders, I go, you can't lead a revolution if you're a pussy. I'm sorry, no revolution's ever been led by a pussy in human history. And the idea that Bernie Sanders goes up there and goes, I want to lead a revolution, but then like so 2 chicks can just come take his microphone from him and he bails off the stage, and you're like, okay, well, okay. It's like, dude, he would do these things where he was like, he goes, he'd be on stage with just him and Hillary Clinton and go, I'm the only one on stage who has not taken money from lobbyists. And you're like, dude, do you not even have the balls to point at her and say she did it? Like, I'm the only one. There's 2 of you. No, you're absolutely right. He went crazy light on her, and she was cheating. It came out that she was cheating. The DNC was slipping her. Look, I know I harp on this, and I'll stop bringing it up so much, but CNN leaked debate questions to Hillary Clinton, and she took them. She took them and then answered the question as if it was spontaneous. That is such low integrity, man. Come on, dude. I have more integrity than that. You should too. Who the fuck is that?
The other thing that's just so crazy about it is she's basically complaining that Bernie Sanders was pointing out that she was her. She's like, in order for me to win this election, I needed everyone to go with the bullshit narrative that I wanted to put out there. We were really trying to pretend like I was a white saint, and if anyone was gonna chop down that narrative at all, clearly the story wasn't gonna work. That's the point. You shouldn't have run because you never had a chance of winning. You lost to Donald Trump. You lost to yourself.
Yes, and by the way, and look, here's the truth, okay? It was a very close race. It was a very, very close race, and she did win the popular vote, and she lost by a small margin everywhere that she needed. She only needed to win like one of those places or two of those places, and he won all of them, you know? So it was a close race, and I'm not convinced she's wrong per se when she says Comey cost her the election. I gotta say, you know, take yourself out of this weird election that we were in. I'm just telling you, it's a normal election in the United States of America, and 10 days before Election Day, the head of the FBI comes out and says we're reopening a criminal investigation against one of the candidates. That's tough. That does not bode well for you. Like, there's no question. And if you lose, and if it's a 1 point difference in this election, it probably cost you the election. That being said, it's if that didn't happen, maybe Hillary Clinton wins, or quite possibly Hillary Clinton wins. If the WikiLeaks leaks didn't happen, maybe Hillary Clinton wins. You know, if the DNC leaks didn't happen, maybe Hillary Clinton wins. Like, there's a few different things that happen, but all of them had Hillary Clinton's doing at the center of them. It's like you're sitting there and being like, Putin, and she says Putin weaponized the information. Well, okay, there's no proof that Putin did anything, but weaponized the information. Well, like, what was the information? Oh, that I cheated. Oh, okay then. What was the information he weaponized? Well, I told a bunch of bankers that I'm lying through my teeth when I talk to the American people. So that's what they weaponized. And even in the investigation, it's like, well, what were they investigating? That you. And I'll tell you, I do think, look, politics doesn't work on it's obviously people don't sit around and decide who they're going to vote for in the way we'd want them to. They're not like reading a bunch of Rothbard and then seeing who makes more sense. But people vote, and I think there was something about Comey reopening that investigation that made people think about Anthony Weiner. And I think when Trump had been hitting Bill Clinton for being a sexual predator, and he was bringing those women out and making a huge thing about it. And I just think there was this moment in the American mind where you're just kind of like, hey, so Hillary Clinton, who the whole thing around Hillary Clinton is like, that it's her, you know, like you said, like that's the whole problem with Hillary Clinton. It's like that she's not liked. People think she's shady. They don't trust her. They don't connect with her as a person. And then Trump's reminding you that her husband's a sexual predator. And then you're like kind of reminded that her best friend, her husband is also a sexual predator. And I do think it leaves a rational person thinking to themselves, who the fuck are these people? You know?
Yeah. Like,
and that doesn't help you politically. But to then just blame that and be like, I'm the victim, it was stolen from me. It's like, well, stop me. You're hanging out with fucking sociopathic predators. I'm sorry, Rob, you were saying.
No, I forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry.
The passion that you had on that second statement really just wiped it out of my brain.
Sometimes my passion sucks up an idea. I apologize. And the other thing what's crazy to me, right, and this is really, I really do think this, is that I think the Clintons are not only, I think the Clintons were shamelessly about wealth and power. But it was both. It was always both. And it wasn't just the power. And the truth is that there's a lot of people in that world who like make money, but don't make gross amounts of money because they want to kind of like maintain their, there was a lot. Hillary Clinton knew she was running for president this whole time, right? I'm saying like since, say, 2008, she knew she was going to run again in 2016, right?
Yeah.
And still, she took, her husband in that time their foundation took tens of millions of dollars from the Saudis. Now you would think to yourself, right? You would go, that's maybe not a great idea because that could come up and make you look bad, right? So you may not want to do that because you want the power. Right?
But she wanted the money too.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's the Clinton
that's a good
mentality.
point.
That's the Clinton mentality. I want the money and I want the power too. Now let me tell you something. Hillary Clinton does not. The case is not that Hillary Clinton doesn't have anyone around her who's smart enough to go, hey, Hillary, don't come out and blame everybody else. This makes you look so bad. Like, this makes you look terrible. Don't do everybody. I mean, I'm talking about from all the Democratic strategists that I talked to on Fox News. Even they're like, yeah, we don't really think she should be doing this.
The sore loser tour.
Yeah, the sore loser. You know what, though? Hillary Clinton's going to make fucking money off this shit. And that's why she'll do it. That's why she'll do it. That's what the Clintons are. That's what the Clintons are. Even after all of this and you've been humiliated, they will whore themselves out and parade themselves around to collect one more check before this bitch disappears into the obscurity that is too kind, that is far too kind of a punishment for her.
Yeah, no grace. That's right. It's last check.
It's fucking a boxer who's past his prime going out there and getting knocked out in the first round looking fat and out of shape, you know? Like, wow, okay, he just came back, like, I'm going to get one more check. And, you know, anyway, it's that's Hillary Clinton to me. That's who those guys are. And, anyway, it speaks for itself. It does. It's interesting because it's really, in a way, it's just so disrespectful of Hillary to all the people who like were sticking up for her and saying she's so great, and you're like, oh yeah, look at her now, look at her now. All right, man. Look, we're gonna wrap here. Sorry, it's a bit of a short episode. I just been crazy busy this whole week, and I still got a whole bunch more stuff coming up for the next week, guys. I'm just gonna give one final plug, but. Please, if you want to support me, if you want to support Gas Digital Network and everything we do here, go to gasdigitalnetwork.com and pick up my debut comedy special, Libertas. It's been #1 on iTunes for 5 days in a row, which was very cool. And yeah, go
Dude,
pick it up.
If you're listening to this and you don't have weekend plans, that's what, $8 is the special?
That's right.
There you go. $8. You get some fucking friends, you pop open some beers, you laugh your ass off, you learn some brilliant concepts, you walk away and you're like, holy shit, I hadn't thought about that before. If you don't have plans this weekend and you don't spend that $8 on that comedy special, dude, you got to come find me at a show so I can help you get your life in order because you're fucking up.
Woo! The Pitbull, Robbie Bernstein, selling for me. All right, and go check out Rob Bernstein's shows. They're both great. Run Your Mouth is the podcast, and
Rob's Newsroom
is the web series. Make sure you check those out, and we'll be back with a brand new episode on Monday. Peace, bitches.